Here comes the judge, Judge Dawson, your yogi judge, and this is another cycle breaker session where I'm trying to empower you and give you some tools that you can use to just better your life. Look, no one wants to be stuck in a rut, and oftentimes we'll find ourselves in ruts, but what we need to do is then look in our tool bag and determine what is it in there that I could use that can get me out of this situation and that can take me to the next level. So today I want to talk to you briefly about a couple of things. One of them is your energy. Your energy. Your energy is so important to what you achieve in your life. And there's good energy and there's bad energy. Well, let me start with the story that happened in my courtroom just recently. So in the city of East Cleveland, where we are trying so hard to dig ourselves out of a lifestyle and mindset of poverty. And let's keep it real. I'm from the city, so I know the city has been a much better place in years past, and we have to work hard to get us back to that glory. Part of that is changing our mentality about the city. So what am I doing as a judge to try and add to that, or at least deter some of the craziness? One is we're getting really serious about those who litter in the city. Now, you may think littering is not a big deal, but it is a big deal, because when you're trying to clean up your mindset, when you're trying to change your environment, it's going to be harder when you look around and there's garbage and debris everywhere. And that's not only in your physical city, that's in your life. So if you live in a house where there's debris and garbage everywhere, it's going to be hard for you to change and make it to your highest potential. If you are in a relationship where there is garbage and debris everywhere, it's going to be hard for you to be your absolute best person in that relationship until you get some of that garbage out. That garbage could be old mindsets. That garbage could be certain people. That garbage could be the person that you're trying so hard to stay with. Because remember, you want to achieve your best life. We're not here forever. So while we're here, why don't we make the best of it? So you want to take an inventory of your area, of your life, of your neighborhood, and determine what garbage you need to get rid of. And then you have to get serious about littering. That means people dumping and throwing things in the environment that you're trying to clean. So let's go back to the city of East Cleveland. We're working very hard to change that mentality. So if you are caught littering in the city, you're going to have a maximum fine and you're going to spend some time in jail. Because I find it deplorable in the city that I live in, the city that I work in, the city that I was born and raised in, the city I love, that people will ride down the street, roll down their window and just throw a bag out. I mean, it's ridiculous. You wouldn't do that at your home, or then again, you might if you're the type of person that would do it in the city. So we have these high penalties. But then just recently, speaking with the executive branch, the mayor and his team, there was a decision that the city would now like to pursue forfeitures of your vehicle if you dump. Now think of that, ladies and gentlemen. Think of your penalty. If you dump in the city of East Cleveland, and I'm sure it's like this in many other cities, you may lose your car. Now for me, that is a very high penalty. You work every day, all day, trying to just get your transportation. Some of you have worked hard just to get your license back together. And then you do something as silly as dumping and you can lose your entire vehicle. Well, that's the penalty. And that really quickly goes to what I do, not only in these workshops and my podcast and my Dose of Positivity email and all the books that I write. I'm trying to inform you of how to avoid negative interaction with the legal system. The first step is you have to know the laws in the city that you are operating in. So if you are in the city of East Cleveland and you are dumping, you now know that not only will you possibly get your vehicle taken, I mean, that's terrible, but you're going to get a maximum fine and you will serve time in jail. So that is the penalty right now for dumping. Now, how does that relate to the topic of energy? Well, I'm glad you asked. So I'm in court handling my regular cases, and my bailiff brings to my attention that there is a dumping case that's going to be coming up pretty shortly. And, you know, we get a chance to communicate a little bit because he likes to make sure that I am aware of the cases that are coming before me. So he says, Judge, I want you to know that there's a dumping case. And remember, the conversation that the mayor had with you the other day when he came down in the courtroom and pretty much begged the court to get even harder on people who are dumping in our city. So my bailiff said, hey, Judge, I just want to remind you of that. And remember, there was a discussion about taking vehicles. And I just want to let you know that there's a plea deal coming before you that doesn't address it at all. They're not talking about the vehicle. They're not mentioning that the city wants it. And I just want you to know that so you'll be aware of what you need to do. So I'm going through my cases. And of course, like I said, energy, it goes up and down, but it's so important to how we achieve and what we achieve and how we relate to people. Remember, we're talking about energy, right? So my energy is going up and down. And I think when you are trying to reach your highest potential, when you're trying to be as successful as you need to be, you have to also not only monitor your energy, but you have to monitor other people's energy, right? Because you have to decide how you're going to interact with that next person. And you have to decide whether or not that person is important enough for you to even care about their energy. So as I first began, I said, look, if you take a personal inventory of your life, you may find that there are things in your life that you need to get rid of because it's garbage and it's dumping. So if that's the situation, you may not even care about the energy of that particular person or thing because you're getting rid of it. Now, let's switch over to a courtroom scenario. You are standing before a judge. You need to know the energy that that judge has, because when the judge calls your case next, you want to know how to interact with the judge. And that's a quick analysis of energy. Now, I would go on to say that the same thing applies when you're out here on the street dealing with these officers. And I don't want you to, think, hey, Judge Dawson is pro officer or pro anything. I'm just pro you being the best that you can be. So when I tell you that an officer, when he walks up to your car, for your safety, to make sure that you're going to make it home that night, I would look at the officer and I would try to gauge his energy really quickly so I can know whether or not this officer means me harm or if he's just doing his job. Because if the officer means to do me harm, then I need to do every single thing I can to get home, because that's my objective. My objective is not to argue with the officer, to let him know that I'm a man and let him know that I have rights. That's all good, and you can do that later. But right now, I want to get home. So I'm going to read his energy so it can tell me how to act. So here we are, back to my court scenario. I'm going through all my cases. My energy is going up and down, and it's up to this guy who's going to come before me to think about this. How is the judge's energy before my case is called? So I call his case. We're talking about the issue of dumping. Now, let me tell you this. When somebody litters in your house, in your life, in your mind, in your community, it's not a mistake. It's not a mistake. This guy kept saying, hey, Judge, I made an honest mistake. I didn't mean to litter. Well, how did you not mean to litter? Did you physically take something off your truck and dump it or place it somewhere that was not your location? If you did that, you littered and you meant to do it, unless you were sleepwalking. And if you can sleepwalk and move something as big as a couch, then you need to pick up another career. Your future is not in whatever you're doing. Your future is being a strong man or something like that. So the first problem I had with was this guy refused to accept responsibility and told me that it was a mistake, an honest mistake. So right there, my energy is changing because I'm like, okay, I got to have a guy in front of me. He's not taking responsibility, and it's going to change my energy. Now, the next thing that happened is, as he continued to try to defend himself, he started calling me man over and over again. Now, I normally don't have a problem with that, but remember, I'm a judge. I worked hard to get to this position. I've been a legal professional for over 20 years. So I at least deserve the respect of being called judge when you're hoping that I'm going to look out for you. But instead, he's like, man. I'm like, okay. And I let it go for a minute. Then I say, look, sir, you're going to have to call me judge. I'm respecting you, so respect me. So again, there's a shift in my energy. So we start to talk about the possible penalties that he's facing for this dumping. And he begins to get emotional because he feels that, hey, his car has been in the impound for a few days, and now he's standing before the judge, and the city is asking me to take his vehicle. Now, the funny thing about that, even though the city prosecutor is asking for the vehicle to be taken, he's not blaming the city prosecutor. All he's doing is looking at me, Judge Dawson's trying to take my vehicle. In fact, he kept saying, you guys, y'all, the police and you. And I said, hey, I don't work for the police. They don't work for me. We're not in cahoots together. I'm just here to enforce and actually bring the law home as to what you did or didn't do. So we go through that. But the point of the matter is this. His energy was terrible. His energy was terrible for a person who was asking me to do him a favor. See, I sat there with the power to take his vehicle. That's just the blessing of the position, right? But his energy was so negative that it almost gave me no choice. And think about you in your life. How many times are you dealing with someone who has the power to change your life for better or for worse? How are you dealing with them? And are you giving them good energy, or is your ego too big to give the energy that you need to achieve the goals that you have? If you're in the bank and you're trying to get a loan, what type of energy are you going to give to the loan officer? If you are in the store trying to check out and you want to get home because your kid is waiting for you, what type of energy are you going to give the clerk? Because remember, when you give that negative energy, it all goes bad. People assert their power and they make you wait, or they make you suffer. I mean, that's just the reality, right? I mean, how many times have you blown your horn to somebody who's in front of you? You're on a one-way street and you blow, and what do? They slow down. They don't go faster. Then you two start throwing up middle fingers at each other and waving and thinking about pulling over. It just gets terrible and the suffering begins. So my suggestion to you today is to make sure you are bringing positive energy to any situation where you want to win. Your energy is so important. Your energy can actually change the dynamic of the room. Imagine in that case I had in court. Imagine if that young man got up and said, good morning, Judge Dawson. How are you today? I see you, have had some crazy cases, but I just want to get my case resolved. Well, sir, what's your name? And he tells me his name and we go through and he says, Judge Dawson, I accept responsibility for what I did wrong. And I understand the city is asking for my vehicle, but I need my vehicle, Judge. I need to make a living. I need to get my kids from A to B. Can you imagine what that would do? That type of energy? I'd sit back like, okay, this man did learn from his situation and he deserves a break. But when you walk up there with the opposite, swag, calling me man, saying that you made a mistake, I shouldn't take your vehicle. Come on now, that energy is going to give me energy. People say it all the time. I'm going to treat you the way you treat me, or the energy you give is the energy you get. Now, that's not how it should be, but we're all human beings. So remember, try to give your absolute best energy, because when you give your best energy, you will receive the best outcome. That is another edition of Here Comes the Judge with your yogi judge, Judge Dawson. Like I said before, I am a judge, but I'm also a yogi, so I do my best to bring you that zen into your life every week when I do these podcasts. But it's not enough just for me and you to enjoy it. Share it with your friends, share it with your family, or just share it with someone who needs some encouragement. Look, we can all use tools and techniques to get to the next level, and talking about how to deal with energy and calmness, wow, that can change your situation from a mess to magnificent. All right, I'll see you next time. It's the Yogi Judge, and until we meet again, namaste.